Imagine this. You're lying awake at 2:13 a.m., staring at the ceiling, wondering what more you could have given. You offered your softness, your loyalty, your soul, in quiet gestures, in loud sacrifices, in moments when your heart whispered, maybe this time he'll see me. But he didn't. Not the real you. Not the woman who stayed even when she should have left. Not the woman who chose him even when she wasn't being chosen. You remember how you bent, gently at first, then completely, molding yourself around his moods, his silences, his inconsistency. You tried to be his peace, his softness, his reason to grow. But somehow, you became invisible in the process. He told you you were too emotional, too sensitive, too much. And slowly, you started wondering if maybe you were. If maybe love really meant proving your worth over and over again until it finally clicked for him. But it didn't. And now here you are, hollowed by effort, haunted by confusion, wrapped in the kind of silence that only comes after you've screamed every word your soul could speak and still weren't heard. Carl Jung believed in the collective unconscious, the deep ancient part of us that connects all souls through shared emotion, memory, and archetype. And the pain you carry? It's not just yours. It's the pain of generations of women who were taught to give more than they received, who were praised for enduring instead of walking away, who learned that love must be earned by sacrifice. But you are not broken. You are not too much. You are simply standing at the edge of awakening. This is not the end of your story. It is the unraveling of an illusion. The moment when the fog lifts and you see that your love was never the problem, that your softness wasn't a weakness, it was a mirror reflecting a man who couldn't meet himself. You gave him everything. But now, it's time to give yourself back to you. And this time, you don't shrink. You rise. You loved him with a hope so big it kept you breathing. Not just the romantic kind, but the quiet kind. The kind that believes, if I love him hard enough, he'll finally see me, he'll finally choose me. You gave him everything. Your time, your patience, your body, your silence, your second chances. And even when he didn't ask for it, you gave more. Because something inside of you whispered that maybe, just maybe, this is what love is supposed to feel like. But there's a deep ache no one talks about. The ache of giving so much that there's nothing left of you. The ache of waking up one day and realizing you don't recognize the woman in the mirror. Not because you're broken, but because you've spent so long trying to be enough for someone who couldn't even see the gift that you are. You tell yourself stories to survive the weight of it, that he's just afraid of intimacy, that you're too emotional or too sensitive or too complicated. You learn to silence the inner voice that asks, what about me? What about my needs? You convince yourself that if you're patient, if you don't nag, if you don't ask for too much, maybe one day he'll realize what you've been to him all along. But that day never comes. And the truth quietly breaks your heart. You were chasing a version of him that only lived in your imagination. Carl Jung called this projection. It's what we do when we fall in love with potential, with an unconscious reflection of our own unhealed desires. We project onto them the capacity to save us, to choose us, to validate our worth, especially when we never received that validation in childhood. It's not conscious, it's not foolish, it's deeply human, and somewhere inside of you is a shadow, the part of you you've disowned to be loved, the part of you that holds rage, longing, the truth that sometimes love feels like begging, and you're ashamed to admit it. But that part is not wrong. She is not unworthy. She is simply tired of hiding. You were conditioned to believe love must be earned, that your value depends on what you can give, how much you can endure, how well you can twist yourself into someone else's version of lovable. That you were never supposed to be a performance. You were always the masterpiece. The reason he made you feel like nothing isn't because you are. It's because he couldn't face the light you brought. Jung once said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. And sometimes your love forces a man to confront his emptiness, and not every man is ready for that. But this doesn't mean you failed. It doesn't mean you gave too much. It means your love reached someone who couldn't receive it. And now you stand at the edge of your own emotional evolution. Not bitter but awake. Not hardened but clear. This is the point where the pattern breaks. Where you stop giving to be chosen. Where you stop shrinking in hopes someone else will expand. Where you stop confusing attachment with love. You're not crazy for wanting to be held. You're not dramatic for needing to be chosen. You're not needy for asking to be seen. You're a woman with a soul so deep it scares the emotionally unavailable. You're a woman who still believes in connection, but now you know it must begin within. You're not here to rescue. You're not here to wait for crumbs. You're here to rise, to come home to yourself. To rewrite the story. To say, I am no longer available for love that costs me my peace. And that's not bitterness, that's healing. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly how to stop making your worth dependent on someone else's inability to love you, and finally see through the emotional code that's been keeping you stuck in patterns that were never yours to carry. This video isn't here to teach you how to beg for love more beautifully. It's here to awaken you to the truth that what feels like rejection is often redirection from the universe, from your higher self, from the buried voice inside you that still whispers there has to be more than this. Carl Jung spoke of the anima and animus, the inner, feminine and masculine within all of us. And when we're in a dynamic where we keep giving and giving to someone emotionally unavailable, what's often happening is this. We are unconsciously over-identifying with the nurturing, feminine energy, the giver, the pleaser, the empath, and abandoning our own inner masculine, the part of us that sets boundaries, protects our heart and says, enough. You may think you're just loving him deeply, but in reality your ego is repeating an emotional pattern, one that believes love must be proven through sacrifice, pain, and staying, when you should walk away. And here's the truth. Many men emotionally detach after a woman gives them her all, not because they don't care, but because they never had the tools to receive that kind of intimacy. To them, that love feels unsafe, overwhelming, exposing. So they protect their own vulnerability by withdrawing and unconsciously punish you for offering what they secretly crave but don't know how to hold. This is not your failure. This is their fear. And once you understand this, everything shifts. The shame, it dissolves. The chasing, it ends. The powerlessness, it begins to turn into wisdom. Because by the end of this video, you won't just understand him, you'll finally understand yourself, your patterns, your inner voices, and the sacred reason you keep attracting men who reflect your deepest wounds so that you can finally heal them. Stay with me, because what's coming next will return you to your power without ever needing to earn it again. These next 4 strategies are not just about what to do, they are about what to become. They are not designed to manipulate a man or win him back. They are created to return you to yourself, to the version of you that existed before you believed that love had to come at the cost of your wholeness. If he made you feel like nothing, after you gave him everything, this is how you begin the journey back to your soul. The first strategy is mirror his energy, not his wounds. What this means is, instead of reacting to his detachment with anxiety or overgiving, you learn to reflect, not from fear, but from self-respect. Carl Jung teaches us that we often project what we fear or lack in ourselves onto others. When a man begins pulling away, many women start overcompensating, giving more, explaining more, begging more, because they fear being abandoned. But what if his silence isn't your cue to speak louder? What if it's your opportunity to tune inward and hold your own center? Mirroring his energy doesn't mean you don't care. It means you're not going to betray yourself trying to make him feel what he refuses to feel. The second strategy is speak through silence, not desperation. When you chase clarity from someone who thrives on your confusion, you give away your sacred voice. Instead, choose intentional silence, not as a game, but as a grounding. In Jungian psychology, the ego desperately tries to protect us from rejection by controlling outcomes. But silence disrupts this cycle. It forces both you and him to sit in the discomfort of what's unsaid. It's in that space that truth rises. Your silence is not your weakness. It is your mirror, your message, your boundary. It says, if you can't meet me in honesty, I won't meet you in effort. The third strategy is withdraw to create emotional clarity. Sometimes you're too close to see the pattern. When you've given your whole heart to someone who gives you breadcrumbs, your inner world becomes foggy. You second-guess yourself. You doubt your worth. You lose touch with the part of you that knows. Jung spoke about the shadow, the parts of ourselves we hide, repress, or deny. And often we see those shadows through the people we choose. So stepping back from him, not as punishment, but as protection, gives your shadow the space to be seen and healed. Withdrawal is not abandonment, it is spiritual hygiene. It is how you clean the space where you've been losing pieces of yourself in hopes he would finally see you. The fourth strategy is live in your feminine, not in reaction. The fur, when he makes you feel like nothing, the impulse is to become more pleasing, more available, more perfect. But true feminine power is not about being more for him, it's about being fully you, rooted, radiant, untouchable by his inability to love deeply. The anima, as Jung called it, is the soul of the feminine within every human, including men. When a man rejects your love, he is often rejecting his own anima. That's his battle, not yours. So instead of fighting for his attention, feel, create, rest. Reclaim softness as strength. Express, not explain. Receive, not chase. You are not here to be earned. You are here to be felt. These strategies are not about playing cold. They are about returning to a warmth that does not burn you out. They are how you stop making yourself smaller to keep love, and start expanding into the version of you that never needed to be chosen to feel whole. Remember this: you didn't lose him. You found the place where he could not follow you into your depth. And that's where your healing begins. You gave him everything: your time, your softness, your belief in who he could be. And still, somehow, you walked away feeling like nothing. But the truth is, you were never nothing. You were simply trying to be everything to someone who had not yet met himself. And that is not a reflection of your value, that is a mirror of his disconnection. Carl Jung once spoke of his own emotional unraveling, a period after breaking with Freud when he descended into a deep inner chaos. He would later call it his confrontation with the unconscious. During that time, Jung allowed himself to fall apart so he could meet the unknown parts of himself, the fears, the shadows, the wounds he had long avoided. What emerged from that darkness was his greatest work, but it required isolation, silence, a sacred loss of control, and that is where you are now. You may not have chosen this heartbreak, but it is choosing you to go deeper, to finally stop trying to earn your place in someone else's heart, to stop making your self-worth dependent on how much pain you can endure in the name of love. The pain you feel is not madness, it is meaning. It is your soul refusing to settle for another relationship that breaks you just to keep you close. You have been carrying the emotional labor of two people, trying to love him while also holding space for all the parts of him that don't know how to love back. But here's the truth that may shift everything. You didn't lose him. You lost the illusion that love must be proven to be deserved. You lost the part of yourself that believed your softness was weakness. You lost the lie that your worth is measured by how long you can stay in pain. And now you are free. Because when a woman realizes that she can no longer be emotionally manipulated by a man who is still at war with his own anima, his own inner feminine, she doesn't harden. She rises. She doesn't close off. She expands. She doesn't chase. She creates. Jung taught that individuation, the process of becoming whole, is painful. It requires shedding the masks you wore to be loved. It means letting go of roles like the one who fixes or the one who forgives everything. It asks you to become fully you, not the woman he wanted you to be, but the woman you were before the world told you to shrink. So, here's your piece. You were never too much. You just loved someone who was not ready to meet the depth you bring. He couldn't hold your love because he hadn't yet met the broken places inside himself. He didn't fail you because you were unworthy. He failed you because he was still hiding from the mirror your love held up. Let that truth calm you. Let it release you from the loops of overthinking and self-blame. Let it return you to your emotional sovereignty, to the part of you that knows. You are not here to beg for closeness, to perform for attention, or to ache for breadcrumbs. You are here to love from fullness, not fear. To be met, not managed. To be chosen, not used. So let this be your return to softness without sacrifice, strength without survival mode, to a love that begins inside and echoes outward, not the other way around. If this message touched you, subscribe, because this space is for your healing, your clarity, your truth. Tell me in the comments what part spoke to you the most. And if you know a woman who's forgetting how powerful she is, share this with her. Sometimes all it takes is one message, one voice, one mirror. Remember what was never lost. Worthy is unshakable.